Здравейте от сърцето на така наречената европейска демокрация от Страсбург. Тук съм след пленарната седмица и искам да ви представя един гост от Хърватска, един експерт, икономист от Европейския парламент, с който ще поговорим за реалните цени в Хърватска, за реалната цена на приемането на еврото на предпоследната страна, която беше въвлечена в потъващия кораб, наречен еврозона. Като член на икономическа комисия имах възможност да посетя тази страна и да оценя заедно с комисията, в която съм член, нейния напредък по така наречения план за възстановяване и устойчивост. Честно казано, бях потресена от условията, които хърватите трябва да изпълняват и нещата, които трябва да въвеждат, за да бъдат част от този план, които включват така наречения Gender Office в тяхното правителство, който е част от плана. Но това е само една малка част от нещата, които видях там, които са големи проекти, очевидно финансирани с европейски пари. Но това е съвсем друга тема, която ще засегнем в бъдеще, защото знаем, че всъщност европейските пари са закачени за условия, които в крайна сметка, както в нашия случай в България, просто унищожават нашата енергетика, унищожават националния ни суверенитет и ни правят напълно зависими от субсидиите на Брюксел. Но сега ще превключа на английски, за да говорим за реалното състояние в Хърватска. And now I will switch to English and introduce my guest today, Mr. Perkovic, Ivan Perkovic. Thank you for coming to my podcast and sharing your insights. And as a Croatian, you are very much aware of what's happening in your country, especially after the adoption of the euro. And if you would just share with us how is life there? What is your perspective? Did anything change at all?
Yes, well, thank you for inviting me, Rada. So maybe just a few steps back for your audience to have an understanding around the euro. So Croatia joined the eurozone in 2023. We joined the union in 2013. And maybe one thing to keep in mind is that most of us expected that there will be a referendum on the euro adoption. However, our government decided that it is not necessary. And this was then explained by the idea that in the treaties, member states, they say they will eventually adopt, they sort of commit to it. However, we do know that there are many countries today, still member states, who do not opt for the euro. But this was unfortunately, for some people, not the case in Croatia. So in some sense, we could say that euro was imposed on Croatian people.
So some people wanted to have a referendum or going in that direction. This is very interesting because in my country, Bulgaria, we were denied the right to have a referendum.
Something similar happened to Croatia. So people wanted to do it, but the law requires a significant amount of signatures within a period of 14 days. So it is logistically a challenge, especially if you are facing issues like, no finances or limited finances. So for, let's say, smaller political parties, this presents a big challenge.
This is really interesting. It's very similar to what happened with us, but in our case, my party managed to gather the signatures and we did a really huge national effort for this, but nevertheless we were denied. So in my opinion and in my experience here in the European Parliament, it's very much a political project, not so much an economic project. But because you obviously have a link to your home country, have you seen any development in the prices and in the daily lives of people after the adoption now?
Yeah, so once the euro was adopted, obviously there was quite a significant campaign from the main political actors and from the euro establishment on the topic of the euro. We have seen several things very early on. The first one is that the government actually introduced certain food price caps because of the challenges related to the inflation. So the data from the Croatian Bureau of Statistics say that approximately 10 to 15% of increase in prices happened, even though I would say the official explanations were saying that we would see changes less than 1%. And so following that, in March of 2023, the government of Croatia decided to introduce these food price caps, initially for around 8 to 10 products, but then later on it was increased to 70, and then eventually to 100. And today we are in March of 2026, and this is still ongoing.
This is really fascinating because we hear about competitiveness, about the free market economy, but this sounds to me as a very socialist measure that is going directly into the market. How did people and the business see that in Croatia?
Well, the people, I would say, from the latest data that we see in the surveys, number one concern for them is the living costs. So there is a massive challenge with that, and we can also see that with the real estate market. So it is very hard for a regular Croatian, let's say a young person or a married couple, to have their first real estate. Now, it is true that most of Croatians do have some real estate, which is obviously generational, so we are in that sense quite high on the percentages, but the point of the fact is it is just very hard for an average salary of, say, 1,200 euros to be able to, get an apartment that is, let's say, around 3 to 5 to 7,000 for a square meter, so it is virtually impossible.
So also the real estate market has an increase since you entered the Eurozone.
This is a really, really, really big challenge. Now, there are other concerns there because Croatia, as you would probably know, is a very popular touristic place.
Yes.
So we have people also from other places oftentimes just coming and buying real estates in our country, which then again puts pressure on the local population because they are not able to do so. Now, one thing that I would mention, which is also important, is the topic of inflation. If we look at the Eurozone and the situation in Croatia, I will just look a little bit here in the numbers. So, for example, in 2023, the Eurozone had inflation at 5.4%, whereas Croatia had at 8.4%. And if we move to 2025, the Eurozone was at about 2.5%, and Croatia was still at 4.4%. So, and we know that inflation hits the people who are living off of their salaries, right? Because it's basically a tax on your salary.
Yes, this is the daily life.
Yeah.
And I'm interested, could Croatia then cover the convergence criteria when entering the euro, or was it a political project that happened nevertheless of the inflation, as the case in Bulgaria?
Well, I think it depends to whom do you talk. I would say the overall perception that the Croatian people have, especially because it was not a democratic mechanism, it was not something that was asked of the people. I think we are sort of more on the line that this was a political question. And especially because of the, I just mentioned the inflation in 23 was too high. I mean, why would you go into that point in time to join the Eurozone, right? So it is something that unfortunately many people in the public square see as a political act, I would say.
You mentioned something pivotal for us, and this is the democratic will of the people, the sovereignty of the people. And this parliament always speaks about democracy in action, but in the case of financial stability, of financial sovereignty, there is no democracy because, as we see in Croatia, nobody was asked about this decision that would affect the life of all future generations. It was the same for us. So I could just say we have to inform ourselves, we have to be in contact about these things and to tell our people what is happening. So I'm very glad, and thank you very much for participating and being a guest to me and my audience, Ivan. Thank you.